just show his poetic style in his writing and in the way they speak. Also, what happens in his plays aren't especially realistic. Stuff that would never ever happen in anything but a fairy tale. Or a prime example, Romeo and Juliet. Like, for instance, the end scene. A poison that Juliet is able to take, fall asleep, and then wake up later perfectly fine and find out that Romeo killed himself and wasn't even able to find a heartbeat. That's never gonna happen. And in a lot of literature, a whole lot of unrealistic events, scenes, dialogue can really mess up the value, the literary value, the ability to get into the literature, period, when it's so unrealistic that it just doesn't make any sense. But this really doesn't affect Shakespeare's works. He's able to use the unrealistic events and dialogue to actually create an art in his work that causes it to be unique and valuable. It sets it apart. And what he's going for with, like, what we defined the purpose in Perrines earlier, it's not to be realistic, have explosions and storylines that just you could believe that happening to somebody, and just a lot of what movies focus on now almost, and they fail at realism and are really not that good because of it. Shakespeare creates the emotion very well with his unrealistic plays, and it's what makes Shakespeare Shakespeare, or at least a part of it.
Shakespeare's characters really come alive in his plays. I mean, he has a lot of different characters, a lot of different character qualities for each of the ones he creates, and some are charismatic, some are foolish, or you have the villains and you have the heroes. Some are overly romantic or maybe impulsive. Others are quiet and gentle. Some are demanding, and there's the leaders and there's the followers. There's all different kinds of characters that he creates in his plays, but each one of them is made believable by the way he writes about them. His character development really ties back to the plot and the themes that he's trying to create, because so much of drama is based on the dialogue and interaction of the characters. Nick was talking about that earlier, how drama is so special because you have the opportunity to see the characters and to watch their interactions and to hear the lines spoken by them instead of having to just read it in your head or try to figure out the way you should say it by reading it even out loud. You have the unique opportunity with a play to understand the character interactions so much better, and Shakespeare really grabbed hold of this and was able to enhance it to the best of his ability. Something specifically unique to Shakespeare would be the way he used his characters. That many playwrights of the day shaped their characters around the plot. They had a story in mind, and then they said, what characters can I put into this play that would help me tell the story? And that's certainly not a bad way of writing. In many ways, it has its advantages. But Shakespeare took that to a different level when he really shaped his plot around a few engaging characters. And that doesn't mean he had no idea what he was going to write about, and he just picked a few characters and then said, what can I let these characters do? No, I'm sure he had stories in mind and a play that he wanted to write. But he did use his characters in a special way that was unique to his specific style. He really valued the character's influence on his audience and readers, because like we said before, you have a special opportunity when you're putting on a play for an audience, or even writing a play for readers. It's unique because there isn't a narrator like in lots of novels that's saying, this is what's going to be next, and then this is what comes after that, and then lines from the characters in between. A play is simply lines from the characters with a few interjections in between lines to tell you the setting and stuff like that, so you know where they are. But there isn't necessarily a narrator saying what's happening. So drama is really a unique category, and Shakespeare uses it so well by the way that he talks about his characters. I guess we could use the example of Hamlet. He's looking for revenge for his father's killer. Um, the drama of the play, the different events that happen, the appearance of his father's ghost and the issue of his mother's marriage, which he just disapproves of, and his romantic interest in Ophelia, all of these events in the play were emphasized by Hamlet's reactions and contributions to the story. Uh, we could take Romeo, for instance, from Romeo and Juliet. He was immature and young, pretty impulsive. He didn't think a lot before he acted, and whenever he did think, it was usually only about himself and not about other people. He really took the course of the story into his hands, and it was because of this that Shakespeare was able to make his story, the story of Romeo and Juliet, so dramatic and kind of over the top. I mean, let's picture for a second if Shakespeare had chose a different kind of character to play Romeo, to play the male lead in the story. If he had picked maybe a more level-headed kind of person, someone that thought more before they took their actions, or someone that cared more about the feelings and the future of other people. If he had picked a kind of character like that, it would seem strange for the events that occurred in the story for Romeo and Juliet to be getting married so shortly after they met. Everyone would be saying, well, wait, why is this happening? They've only just met, and why aren't they thinking this through? Or Romeo's reaction to when he thought Juliet had died, he was so impulsive at that moment, and it would seem really unrealistic for a level-headed kind of guy to be reacting in those kind of ways. So Shakespeare's choice of the character Romeo and his attributes really helps to emphasize the different events in the story and to make them more believable. Juliet was a good example of this too. She helped to contribute to the story as well. She's portrayed as a weak character that follows Romeo around. She thinks she loves him, so she wants to do what he says, even though